welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. You're enjoying the talks as much as I am so far. I hope you're ready for our next speaker. Our next speaker is Adrián Bolonio. And Adrián is a Google developer expert in web technologies, currently working as an accessibility software engineer at GitHub. As part of a talented, diverse, and motivated team that will work on making GitHub and the internet a better and more accessible place, basically for everyone. And here's a fun fact, Adrián. I know that you love antique books, and the oldest book that you own dates from 1586. You know, I'm very curious. We can also talk about this later, but what book might that be?
Well, I mean, actually, the majority of the books from that age are either religious books or travel books. So this book is a religious book, so a book telling more about like Christianism and Catholic tales.
Wow, awesome. I'm sorry, I just had to ask because I was like so super curious. So Adrián, today you will talk about testing web accessibility. If you're ready, you can go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I will share my screen immediately and we can start.
All right.
You let me know. Yeah, perfect. Great. So yeah, let's talk today about testing web accessibility and how to find accessibility vulnerabilities in your website. So again, my name is Adrián. I'm from Spain. I'm an accessibility software engineer at GitHub. I'm a strong accessibility advocate, and you can find me almost everywhere under my surname. So let's talk about accessibility. And the first thing that comes to mind is this: what is this A11Y that we always see when we talk about accessibility? And this is the international acronym of accessibility. And this is because there are 11 letters between the A and the Y in the word accessibility. So now everyone knows what that A11Y is. Why is so obvious in those four situations that the if something is wrong, right? In the first two situations, we see a very steep ramp, totally unusable for a wheelchair. In the third one, we see stairs at the end of the ramp, and in the fourth one, a totally unusable ramp with bars across them. So this is completely wrong, right? It's very, very clear. Another situation, there is someone who arrives in the wheelchair and there is an accessible button. The button is pressed and yeah, the door opens automatically, but surprise, there are stairs after the door. So again, a situation where it is very clear that this is completely wrong. So it's very clear in the real world that these situations are wrong, but when we move to the online world, it's not that clear that a website is not accessible. When we talk about web accessibility, we talk about tools, we talk about websites, we talk about technologies, and that are built to not exclude anyone from using those tools, technologies, or websites. So let's go to an online world example. So we are in an online shop, in your favorite online shop, and you want to check what are your latest purchases. So you call the support team, and then they can tell you something like, oh, you need to click in the top right corner, in the button in the top right corner. Or you want to maybe change your email address, and they can tell you something like, oh, you need to click in the button with the engine icon. But for someone, for example, who is blind, there's no such as icon who looks like an engine, or there's no like top right corner. We need to have this in mind when we developers create our websites. It looked like we talk about web accessibility normally, and we make a direct relationship between web accessibility and blind people. But we already seen in Megan's presentation there are a lot of types of impairments, and of course they are depending on the time. We can categorize it in permanent, temporary, or situational. So, for example, let's take the first one, so touch. A permanent one would be a person who doesn't have one arm. A temporary one is a person who has an injury in the arm, and a situational could be that someone with a kid has their kid in their arms. So situational, you cannot use that arm. So we need to as well differentiate this when we develop. Quick numbers. And in the world, a couple of years ago, we were 7.7 billion people. We are 7.8, I think, around now, and more than 2.2 million people have a near or distant vision impairment. And back to vision impairment. When we create our online shops, our online businesses in the website, we want to reach as much people as possible, and we need to consider that these vision impaired people are our customers and users as well. So we need to treat them as a user. So I'm talking about testing web accessibility, and what I want to do is to give you, maybe we can call it tips or advices, or at least the experiences that I follow through the last years when I'm developing a website. So about testing web accessibility, we can consider automate tests as a very good tool for our applications to be tested, and you can free up your QA team, your testing team, from manually test every part of your application. But this is no magic. They cannot make your website accessible, and we need to treat this automate testing process as a part of a larger testing process where manual testing is as important as the automate one, because we've seen that between 20 and 50% of all the accessibility issues can automatically be detected. So let's start with the first tip, which is test your code while you develop it. I normally work with React applications, and I created a simple React application with 3 small components and a bunch of errors in the main entry of the HTML. So the first component is a button. The second component is a fake button, which is an anchor link with a raw button. So don't do that. And the third one is image. Nothing crazy. And there's like a lot of accessibility errors in the main entry of the application. So what I'm going to use is some tools that helps you to test your code while you develop. In the first case, I'm going to use the Axe engine, which is a accessibility engine, accessibility tool family developed by DQ. And there is a version as well for Vue. I'm 100% sure that if you look for, there's a version for Angular to cover the 3 main JavaScript frameworks in the market, but I'm gonna use the one for React. So for this library, you need to install it as a developer dependency in your project. You need to make sure that you import the library, or you use the library only when you are in an environment which is not the production environment, because you don't want to expose those vulnerabilities for public. And what this tool is doing is giving you a log of the issues that you have in the console of the development tools of your browser. You can see a severity level assigned to every issue, from minor, moderate, serious, or critical. You can see as well what is the error, which element of your HTML is causing this issue, and a direct link to DQ University, which is the official documentation from DQ, and you can learn more about the issue and how to solve it. The next one is linters, using a linter. So for those who don't know what a linter is a library who uses a list of rules, and in these rules you are telling the code editor to tell you that you're doing something wrong about that rule. So in this case, there is a set of rules for accessibility inside the plugin, and you can install it directly. And your code editor, in my case, is Visual Studio Code, is going to give me this wavy red underline, and it's going to tell me, look, in this line there's something wrong. And if I hover with the mouse, a pop-up modal overlay is going to come with some information about what is wrong in this line of code. As well, you can see those linting issues in the terminal when you are running your application. So you can see this in the terminal as well. So those are the tools that I use while developing. If you are developing a design system or individual components, atomic components, and you want to test them in an isolated environment, I think Storybook is a very good tool. I wrote about how to test the accessibility of your components using this tool, so you can read more about this in my blog. Next tip is use the development tools of the browser you are testing your applications with. So in the case of Chrome and Firefox, both have very similar accessibility tools built in. One is the color picker. So once you are inspecting an element in the, sorry, I need to drink. Once you are inspecting an element in the browser, you can, a text element in the browser, you can inspect the color of that text. And in the color picker, you're going to see a contrast ratio number, a value. And this value is going to tell you if the AA or AAA values are passed, so the tests are passed or not. This is the contrast ratio between the color of the text and the color of the background where this text is located. As well, you have it in Firefox, pretty much the same color picker, so both browser has this built in. Another interesting built-in tool that Chrome and Firefox have is the accessibility tree and the computed property. So you can see what kind of element is the element that you are inspecting, what is the accessible name of this element, and this is the accessible name that the screen reader is going to announce to a screen reader user. As well, you can see the specificity of the computed accessible name of this element. So in this case, you can see the title is the lower one in the tree, and area labeled by is always the higher rank one. Firefox has pretty similar tool for that. So I recommend you to use it while you develop your applications. The next one is write your own unit tests. I think it's very important to test your code, and writing your unit test for your atomic components or your atomic functions and methods is very important as well. So in this case, I'm using Jest. Jest is a JavaScript library testing, or sorry, a JavaScript testing library, and I'm using the Axe engine again. we need to install it as a developer dependency in our application. And what you need to do is you write your unit test using Jest. In this case, I'm importing the whole app of my application, or the main file for my application. I am using the React DOM server to transform the application into a string. And I am throwing this string into the Axe engine. And of course, I expect to have no violations. So when I run the test in the terminal, I'm going to see the results. In this case, it's very similar to the React library that I showed you before. You see what is the error, you see which element is the one who's causing the issue, and as well the direct link to the DQ University documentation. Once you have your tests, your unit test done, as well, you want to automate your accessibility test at bigger scale. So in this case, I'm going to show you 3 tools that you can use in the terminal, not per project, and you can use it anywhere in your machine. So let's start with the well-known Axe engine. I've already talked about it 2 times, and you can install it globally in your machine, and you can run the command on your terminal with Axe followed by the URL that you want to test, and this is going to run the test in your terminal. And you can see, again, pretty much the same results that we've been talking about. What is the error, where is the error, and a bit of documentation with this DQ University link. Very similar library is PA11Y, and this works exactly the same. You need to install it globally in your machine, and you can use it in the terminal running PA11Y followed by the URL that you wish to test. And in this case, pretty similar results that Axe. You have what is the error. In this case, we have a very interesting field, which is what principle of the WCAG we are violating, as well the tree in the HTML DOM, and of course the element, the specific element that is provoking this issue. In this case, we don't have any link, any direct link to the documentation. It belongs to us to do our homework and look for the issue and how to solve it. And as well, you don't have to use any server or any testing environment to test this. You can test this over your local host and your local projects. But some people said, look, I have a lot of URLs. I don't want to test one by one. Is there any possibility that I can make a script out of this? So PA11Y has a very interesting extension, which is the PA11Y CI. And as well, you need to install it globally in your machine. And this allows you to create a config file in the root of your project with a JSON file stating the URLs that you want to test. The good thing here is you can do actions. You can take a screen capture. You can navigate through the application. You can wait for an element with a specific ID to be loaded and click on it. So and this will allow you to do much more than just test one URL. Of course, you just need to run p11y -ci. Is gonna look for the, so of course you need to run this in the folder of your project. It's gonna look for this config file and it's gonna run all these URLs that you stated in the JSON in the config file. Once it's done, pretty much the same results that we've seen before. What is the error, and which element is provoking the error, and you can see as well the screen captures in the root of your project. So you can use them for, I don't know, reporting purposes or a visual regression test. So very useful. The next tool that I want to show you is Lighthouse. Is a tool developed by Google and is built in every Chrome browser, but you can use it as well in the terminal. So you need to install it globally as the other ones. And in this case, instead of seeing it only in the terminal, when you put Lighthouse followed by the URL and --view, you're gonna see how Chrome, so Lighthouse is running a full instance of Chrome and is going to be testing a lot of things. It's gonna test performance, accessibility, responsiveness, low internet. So it's gonna be a lot of tests. And at the end, it's gonna be displayed a report, and you can click in accessibility and you can see how the scores for the accessibility test are there. You can see again what is the error, which element is provoking the error, etc. Yeah. So how can we use all these automate tests and the unit test examples that I show you to automate the accessibility test of our source code? If you have your code hosted in GitHub, you can take the power of GitHub Actions to automate the test of your code, not only accessibility. So GitHub Actions are a workflow with a list of tasks that you can perform. It's basically having some kind of CI/CD directly into your repository. So what I did is creating four GitHub Actions, one for unit tests, one for Lighthouse, one for Axe, and one for PA11Y. And I'm telling the GitHub action to run those tests when I create a pull request to my main branch. So when you create a pull request, you're going to see some checks running, and you can see in the left side of every GitHub action, you can see a red cross if the test failed and a green check if the tests are good. You can see that all are red except Lighthouse, and this is why this is because Lighthouse is not a testing tool. It is a reporting tool. So a Lighthouse generates a report, and you are the one who need to read the report and decide what to do with your application. While Axe, P11Y, and unit tests are fully a test, and they can fail or success. That's why you have a red cross or a green tick. Once you see a GitHub action, you can click in details. You can see of course, the running details and the log of the test, and you can see which specific test has failed. And in the case of Lighthouse, as I said, it's not a testing library; it's a reporting library. You can see the report itself, and you have to decide what to do with this report. You can read it, analyze it, and then act according to the results. If you want to know a bit more about this process, I wrote a full article only about GitHub Actions and those 4 tests, unit tests, P11Y, Axe, and Lighthouse. So you can read more in my blog. And we said at the beginning that automate tests can only tackle and identify 20 to 50% of all accessibility issues that we have in our websites. And the big recommendation as well is do manual tests and simulation tests. Of course, I skipped putting in this presentation screen readers because it's a very big topic. So I definitely recommend you to use screen readers to understand what a screen reader user is hearing when using your website. But in this case, I'm focusing more into Chrome and Firefox extensions, because we are talking about websites and web applications. So everything works in a browser, or at least this is the majority of the application. So you can use extensions to simulate or test manually. So the first one, again, back to our beloved Axe engine by DQ. You can find this extension when you install it under the development tools of your browser. You can click in Axe, analyze, and it's going to perform a full analysis of your website. It's going to display it in a more visual way, but the results are very the same as with React Axe or the Axe CLI directly in the terminal. You can see what is the error, where, and you have the severity level and the link to the documentation. Very similar application or extension in this case is the ARC toolkit. You can see it as well. You can find it as well under the developer tools in the browser. And you can see the family of elements that the test is performing. I'm choosing images here. The good thing as well is that in the window, you are going to see, in this case, the images that doesn't have any alternate text highlighted. So you can identify them and find them quicker. Another very useful tool is Accessibility Insights. Is an extension built by Microsoft, and one of the features that I like from this extension is the tabbing order feature. So tabbing order is very important for a website because the tabbing order needs to be consistent with the content of your website. You need to understand that some some users will scan and navigate through your website using the tab key or a keyboard instead of a mouse. So you need to be sure that the navigation is fluid and consistent, and of course, meaningful with the content of your website. So you can see while you tap using this extension that you're gonna see a map with numbers on what is the order of the tabbing navigation of your website. So you can really use it to identify if this is the correct order of the navigation. Another very helpful and very, very complete extension is Wave. You can find that under the extension bar, and once you click, it's going to perform the analysis. You can see a lot of things here, like missing alternate text in images. You can see as well the heading levels of your document. As well, you can see the contrast ratios of the text. You can disable fully the styles of your website. You can see if the DOM structure is correctly built, and you can as well dig in the code if you are more familiar reading HTML. Very, very useful extension. So the summary is, or maybe not tips, but the things that worked for me is test your code while you develop. We already talked about Axe as an extension for React, Vue, or Angular, and linters to tackle and identify issues directly from the code editor. Use the browser development tools. So you are building a web product, so you are going to use a browser. The browser have excellent development tools built in, so please use them. How to make your accessibility test. We already seen how to write unit tests and using A11y and Axe and Pay11y and Lighthouse, and using GitHub Actions if you want to perform those tests while you're creating a pull request if you have your code hosted in GitHub. And do manual test and simulation tests. So use extensions for your browser. You can, of course, use a screen reader to simulate a screen reader user experience. So those are the 4 tips and advices that works for me, and I think it should work for you as well. The small application that I created in React is hosted under my profile in GitHub. The slides of this talk and some other talks that I gave are under speakerdoc.com under my profile. You can read more articles about web accessibility in my blog. This is the main focus of my writing. I want to take advantage and recommend you a introduction to web accessibility course done by the W3C. You can find it in the platform edX. It's free and it's not only for technical people. It's a very, very good starting point if you want to learn more about web accessibility. And I want to leave with a couple of sentences that I think summarizes the meaning of web accessibility. And the first one I said is just not just about disabled users being able to access your website. It's about everyone being able to access your website. We already seen at the beginning and as well in Megan's presentation that there is a lot of impairments. And not all impairments are permanent. We saw that they are temporary as well and situational. So we are all impaired. The difference is the grade and the level of our impairment. And we are not the same impaired today than tomorrow than maybe in an hour. We already seen situational impairments. So we need to build websites and web products for everyone, because there is one true thing is that we don't know who is our user, who is using our website. So we need to be sure that it is built for everyone, because accessibility is not a feature. It's never been a feature. It will never be a feature, because no disability, no impairment has been chosen, and we cannot treat accessibility as a post process or as a doing it later. We need to start including web accessibility from the very beginning of the ideation of a product, from the design, from the requirements, from the development, from the testing. It needs to come everywhere. This is a responsibility of a team and not a responsibility of the developers. So if we all work together to build an accessible product, we are helping to have a better, not only internet, not only internet, but a better world and a more accessible world for everyone. And I think that's pretty much. Thank you very much. Is it just me that I don't hear you? Okay. I still don't hear you.
You still don't hear me?
Oh, now.
Oh, well, hello. Thank you, Adrián, for your talk. Well, we're doing this live, right? So this is what you get. Sorry for that. Yes, I already had like a gazillion questions. You missed all of them, but no, I'm joking. So we had a question from the audience, and so just a quick check: was that an X-link that you had enabled in GitHub?
Sorry, so, can you repeat?
Yes, sorry. Was that an X linter you had enabled in GitLab? You were talking about
in
the X
GitLab or in
GitHub.
Or in GitHub?
GitHub.
Okay, because so in GitHub, yes, there is an X linter.
Did I say GitLab?
You said GitLab, yeah, it's okay.
I thought GitHub.
No, yes, there is an Axe linter as an extension for GitHub repositories. But if you want to know as well, I mean, let's be honest, we are all developers. GitLab is using PA11Y built in their repositories as well. So either if you have your code in GitHub or GitLab, you are always able to test your code for accessibility.
All right, thank you. And do you know automatic testing tools, or integration testing tools for Blazor application?
For mobile application, you said?
Blazor applications.
Ooh, not that I know of. I mean, I'm not sure. I will definitely write it down and investigate a bit more. And if the person who has this question wants to go back to me in private, then maybe I will give him an answer or give him or her an answer in a couple of days. I need to investigate.
Yes, sure. Or just feel free to check out our chat. I think they're also there. The questions also asked in there, so feel free to check that out. And one final question. What are the main accessibility errors found in websites across the internet?
I would say, so one of the biggest one is the misuse of buttons and links. So there is a lot of misuse of buttons when people wants to use links, and links when people wants to use buttons. I think the thumb rule would be buttons perform actions and links takes you somewhere. Missing alternate text for images is as well a very, very common mistake. And color contrast. I think we all want to have super beautiful and shiny websites, but sometimes we forgot about what is the relationship between colors and how text behaves on and looks in different backgrounds. So I think those are for me the trio that you can find in main websites.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adrián. I think we have one final question. Will GitHub Copilot include accessibility suggestions?
Ooh, that's a very interesting question. I'm not 100% sure if I understand the question as, is Copilot telling you that you should include a alternate text in an image because this is the work of a linter? But if Copilot is generating the code for you, it should be accessible. And if it's not, then I will talk to my fellow team to work with them on that.
Yeah, I think that's what I think, because the GitHub Copilot makes suggestions for you, and they're sometimes not very super accessible. So it would be amazing if the suggestions done by GitHub Copilot would be more accessible.
Definitely. I mean, from the accessibility team, we are a team in the middle, so we work with all the teams in GitHub. So definitely, this is something that we will work with them in the future for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Adrián.
Thank you